Hello and welcome to the Staff Assembly Elections Information Session. On behalf of Staff Assembly, I would like to welcome you to our next rendition of the elections coming in May, the end of this month, and through June or mid-June. Here, UCLA recognizes the Tongva traditional land as the ancestral caretakers of what is now Toangar. And we would like to welcome you to this session of UCLA's Staff Assembly. Get here. All right. So UCLA, for staff, by staff, because we want to be able to support all of our staff here at UCLA and have you all get involved with and for your own colleagues throughout the university. How do you get involved? Well, we would like for you to run for our board positions. We have many, I don't remember how many, but we have quite a few board positions available this year. And one of the biggest things that we do and have been doing for the past couple of years is the staff engagement surveys. Staff engagement surveys come to us because of this, the UC system-wide staff engagement that is put out by a third-party company along with UC. And it essentially gets an idea of where our staff are. How are they feeling about the UC system? And our UCLA Staff Assembly puts together task forces to ensure that we are doing better than what we can do. Today, we're also going to go through the campus committee appointments. So Staff Assembly has members present in each of the committees that are around the university. And these committees report back to us and we report to them so that there is some collaboration and communication processes in place. We also ask that you consider joining some of our VP committees. When we have events and things that we need to do, programming activities, we put together those events and appoint people to go into those committees like the task forces. But we also look to our staff for general volunteering, help some of our VPs out in developing our website, putting social media out, things like that. So we'll run through each of the board positions, and some of our board members here today will tell you about what that work entails, the time commitment that is involved, and some other details that they'll be able to share because of their experiences. So as noted here, these are all the positions that are up, except for president and immediate past president. Those you'll eventually get into if you run for president-elect. The other position that isn't always available is our treasurer. We are looking to change that name though during the elections process this year. Board roles. Do we have our VP of Creative Production? Yes.
So I think Grace is not here today. So I'm happy to go over this unless another board member wants to hop in. Any takers? Okay, so essentially our creative production VP is responsible for all of our print assets, typically when we're in person, and anything digital, anything that goes in our emails, in our newsletter. They create the banners, all of the graphics that go on social media, sometimes support with, videos that we might be creating on behalf of the board. So this position is really great if you have an interest in design and you want to either, develop more skills there, or if you already have it as like a side hobby that you just want to do a little bit because you don't get to do it in your day job. some software skills that are useful, but not necessary if you're willing to learn, are Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. And we're really big on following the UCLA brand guidelines and making sure everything is consistent there. So it's also helpful to familiarize yourself with the brand guidelines. And this position, I would say, it goes through peaks where it'll be more busy depending on our events that we have scheduled. So definitely as major events come up, there will be more work to be done in terms of creating all these assets. And then, you really get to work with each board member directly in creating a lot of this content. So it's a great way to network and also get to know others on campus.
Thank you. VP of Development.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren. I work full-time at the Alumni Association. And this past year, I have been Vice President of Development for Staff Assembly. And this is a really great position because it's really meaningful, the work that we're doing. This whole year, I've been focusing on raising funds. Well, actually, every year, this position raises funds for our staff. So we're giving back to our staff for staff scholarships. So you're really impacting the community directly. On the left-hand side, you'll see our Spark campaign. This is really where I focused most of my efforts this year. You can see we had a really successful campaign. We reached 108% of our goal. And it's really due to the board that we had. We had such a fantastic board that all contributed to it. And so I played a very small role in what we were able to accomplish. Thank you all for joining us in those efforts. And so that's just like one thing that you can do in this role is run a Spark campaign. I think that's really what took the most of my time. Spark campaign was about 4 weeks of prep. So getting all the graphics together, getting all your marketing together, and then also 4 weeks of the actual campaign. So I'd say I did a little bit of work on the Spark campaign every day for those 8 weeks. But that was probably the busiest part of this position. But doing the Spark campaign is it doesn't have to be something you do every year. It made a lot of sense because we were virtual this last year. But we're going to probably be going back to in-person things next year. And so that's kind of where you can be really creative in this role. In the past, we've done a day at Universal where part of those proceeds went back to staff scholarships. We've also done Oktoberfest, and part of those proceeds came back to staff scholarships as well. So we know people are going to want to get back in person, and so you can get really creative with what type of events you can do that will bring money back to staff assembly. And then another big part of this role is just kind of working with internal and external organizations and creating those partnerships or maintaining those partnerships. So we have really strong relationships with UCU, with Westcom. We also have a lot of longstanding history with different departments on campus. So Anderson, and we are basically exchanging our marketing. We have a really big marketing list of about 30,000 staff members, and we're exchanging that for a donation to our scholarship fund. And then I think in terms of the person that I probably work with the most, is probably the president and also the VP of events, Lori. And so events is really where we collaborate the most because that's where we can have sponsorship opportunities. And so for events like the virtual 5K or small business resource fair, we can find businesses that are willing to, in exchange for promotion, they'll, pay, we'll have different, rankings, right? Or different levels of sponsorships. So they can support us in various different ways. So it's really creating those relationships and supporting those really big, events that we have. So yeah, it's a really great position. I really enjoyed it. And I think the biggest takeaway is just getting to, have those relationships with all these different people on campus, and also just being part of the board. This board is amazing, lots of fantastic people. It's great to just meet new folks. So definitely encourage you to apply for the role.
Thanks, Lauren. VP Digital Engagement. Do we have
So
our...
I can go ahead and take this one because Jennifer's not here today. I actually did the VP Digital Engagement role a couple years ago for Staff Assembly. It's a really fun and engaging role to have. If you are on your own social media, you basically know how to do this role. So essentially, it's managing our various social media platforms, which currently we're most active on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We've also started a LinkedIn group as well. So I encourage you all to join our LinkedIn group for updates there. But basically this role really interacts with staff through social media, which is just another great way to connect outside of our newsletter. So we do a lot of different posts for social contests, giveaways. Fan Friday is a really huge giveaway that we usually do when we're able to have in-person attendance at our athletic events. So it's a really great partnership with UCLA Athletics, where we are able to offer staff tickets to football games, basketball games, different things that are happening around campus. So we're hopeful and excited to bring that back next year if we can get some in-person attendance at these sporting events. And then it's also just a really great way to highlight the great work that staff are doing. So we'll do staff spotlights and shout outs through our different platforms, and basically just interact and connect with staff there. I would say the time commitment for this position kind of varies as well based on how the events are going. So typically when we have a major event scheduled, there will be a lot more posting, a lot more frequent posting that needs to happen in our different channels just to keep staff connected and updated on what's happening with the event. But then in general, you know, even if we're in, you know, a slow period and we don't have a lot of events going on, it's good to check it, you know, at least a few times a week, the different channels, and just see if we've had any new messages, any new followers. It's also great to share content from other campus departments and different partners that we have through these platforms as well. So, you know, the time commitment kind of varies, but I would say it's a very flexible role in that, you know, you can do it on your lunch break, you can do it when you have a few minutes during your day. So you can really plan out when you're going to post around your own schedule. And we've also recently started using a few tools to make this role easier, such as posting through Hootsuite, just to streamline that process. And then also using platforms like Linktree to help provide additional links in our bio so that we don't have to update that every time we have a new event. We can just kind of house them, all of the links in one location. So those kind of platforms have been great tools added to this position. And really, like, you have the creativity and freedom to, you know, create content, create your own posts, and then also think of other ways to kind of help streamline this role, and other social media tools that we might not be using that may be helpful. So again, no experience necessary for this role. Basically, if you have your own personal social media, you'll be great at this role too. And it's just managing it from the Staff Assembly platforms.
Thanks, Jessica. VP of Events. Do we have our events?
Yep, I'm here. Hi, y'all. So Vice President of Events, I have had a lot of learning this year since I have never done a virtual event. I do events in my normal day job, but they're in person. So this year has been learning. It's been fun. This board has really like rallied and supported and helped me out. Small Business Resource Fair is an event that we partner with UCLA Purchasing and invite approved small businesses, normally in person and tabling. This year we did it virtually, and all they pay to attend, and that money goes towards the staff scholarships that Lauren mentioned earlier. And then Invest in You Summit, which is coming up, is also another fundraiser. Registration starts today. Look for the email. That also, that will be June 1st. And we invite speakers from across campus. We get keynote speakers. We're partnering with University Credit Union on this one, and they are providing keynote and some personal finance. There's sessions on wellness, career development. We're working on adding a couple more sessions of different topics. And then the virtual 5K is going on right now. That one was really fun to do, picking different categories. And that one we work, this year we're working with the Westcom Foundation. And so the people that I work with closely, development, the president, well, everybody really, because then you need volunteers to help out. Time commitment wise, fall's pretty quiet, but I would use that to prep and be ready. The small business resource fair is usually in winter quarter, and then the virtual 5K Invest in You come in spring and summer-ish. But there's no reason why you can't even create another event. I did a small 5K that was connected to the Spark campaign, which I think could be more successful, just with a little bit more prep if development decides to do another Spark campaign. It was kind of a last minute ad to help drive some traffic to Spark, but yeah, that's my job.
Thanks, Lori. VP Information Systems.
So I think Adrian had to hop on another call. Ray, do you want to cover this one, or I'm happy to if you want me to? I just feel like I'm talking too much.
I can. This was pretty simple, actually. You run our website and everything having to do with it. So events that have to be produced and published need to go up here. Our information systems VP essentially works with everybody on communication through our website and for our website. I don't know what the time commitment is, but I imagine it's not much since it's updating the website. However, right now, Adrian, I know, is quite busy with our website because we are looking to revamp it. And so there's a lot more time being consumed now with our website than it will be probably in this next year. But we are looking to revamp it, get it up to date, and move forward with it. So it's more informative, more user-friendly, and adheres to more accessibility features that the UCLA is looking for. But I think that's pretty much it for information systems. It's running the website, keeping pages up to date, and making sure links are working. VP of Outreach.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly. Thanks for coming. So this year, obviously, it was a little bit different because there were not any in-person events. Normally, I know the outreach person is tabling or getting volunteers at most events. This one, any of my tabling, and I'll do quotes, has been virtual, which has been great. And I really, the time commitment base is really based on during a remote time is how much you want to volunteer. And because I wasn't doing tabling events, I wanted to volunteer a lot to get to know all of the other people in the group, but also to kind of have events to reach out to people for. So when we did Staff Appreciation Week, I created like a Monday mingle. So a bunch of people could get together remotely. I work closely with Lori in events. If she needs me to create an email to get people to donate prizes or whatever, I'm happy to create that. Right now I'm working with campus HR to try and get new employees onto our listserv. But like Lauren said, one of the best parts of this, I feel, for me, is the collaboration with other staff members and getting to know people across campus. That's been really important, and especially for outreach. So I know who to say, hey, can we get this in your newsletter? Can I get 5 minutes on your agenda for a meeting? It's really just kind of letting people know what Staff Assembly does, and not just, all of our amazing events like goat yoga and our picnic. It's also, we advocate for staff. That's a big part of what we do. So it's really getting people to know that we're not just the people that you could get swag for. We really, Ray and Jessica are on what's called CUCSA, which is all the UC staff assembly, and they really are advocating for staff. So yeah, again, this is a great position. If you're not shy talking to people, if you're not an outgoing person, this may not be the one for you. I happen to love talking to people and love meeting new people, so this is a perfect fit for me. And I would absolutely recommend that if that sounds like something you want to do, to absolutely run for this.
Thank you, Kelly. VP of Programs.
Hello, everyone. I apologize. I am not in person on screen here today. I've been having some technical issues, but I'm Joy Kruger, and I am the VP of Programs, which means you get to do all of the super fun Learn at Lunches. So if you're interested in seeing what's going on around campus and sharing that with everyone, we've gotten to do a lot of really fun programs even during this virtual year. So that's been a lot of fun. It takes probably about 5 hours a week to put on all of these. I typically do 2-ish a month to give folks an opportunity to see some different stuff going on around campus. So yeah, really great. Lots of fun. Back to you, Ray.
Thanks, Joy. VP Strategic Communications.
Oh, Ray, I think you might have skipped one. I thought I saw special projects pop up.
You're right. Special
Awesome.
projects.
Lucy, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I am also not on camera today, but happy to talk about special projects. So special projects is our VP who focuses specifically on our special projects. Our special project meeting, our scholarship and awards program. And it is obviously one of the largest, focuses of Staff Assembly's work is fundraising to be able to offer scholarships to our staff, for professional development opportunities, and then also awards to recognize extreme achievements. And then in addition to that, which we haven't been able to do this year in virtual world, is we've been partnering with Mrs. Block on some outdoor gatherings. So as you can see here, we visited the Lakers facility. I believe we did like a tour of the Venice Canal, or I think it was like a scavenger hunt of downtown. Oh, and I believe we also went to Dodger Stadium a couple years ago. And so when we are able to be in person again, this VP of Special Projects will be in charge of working with Mrs. Block and her team in making these staff-oriented outings happen. Other than that, I believe that is it, even though Special Projects does get a couple of other special projects handed to them when it comes up. I would say the time that it takes to do this role, probably about 5 hours a week. It may be a little more during the weeks of when events are, and then during the springtime, because there is the scholarships scholarship and awards application process, and managing our our scholarship review committee. It may take a little more time in the spring, but other than that, it's pretty manageable. And again, you get the pleasure of working with the entire board.
Thanks, Lucy. And now our strategic communications.
Is Eileen here? I don't know if she's on the call today. I don't see her, so I can go ahead and do StratCom. This was actually my first board role that I ever held, and it was really interesting. For me, it was really great to just get an introduction to Staff Assembly and know everything about what's going on the campus, because we partner so much with different departments to share their content in our newsletter. It's really great to keep on top of all of the events and happenings. So it's really interesting. We use currently MailChimp as our platform for formatting the newsletter. So it's pretty straightforward and easy to format the content. So if you don't have experience in it, it's something I feel like you can pick up pretty quickly. And then essentially this role is responsible for formatting the newsletter and prepping it to send off to our listserv that we currently have about over 40,000 staff subscribe to. So it reaches a pretty large audience. And this is one of the positions on the board that does have a very regularly occurring scheduled time commitment. So our newsletters go out bi-weekly. So that's just something to be prepared for if you're interested in strategic communications, that you would need to be available bi-weekly to create the newsletter and help send it off to the listserv. So that does tend to, you know, instead of being somewhat flexible with time, you kind of need to have the day of the week scheduled, or like, you know, the time that you're going to work on the newsletter scheduled out, so that we can make sure we maintain that time frame. And then occasionally we'll also do dedicated emails. So those usually occur in off weeks that we don't have the newsletter. So in some months, you might have emails going out every single week. So that's also something to just be prepared for in this position. But aside from that, I think that, you know, now that we're using the MailChimp system, it's really easy to format the newsletter. And that part of the process, I think, has been streamlined significantly. So, you know, it might only take a couple hours to format and put it together. So even though it's a more regularly occurring commitment, it still, I think, is doable to fit around your work schedule, or, you know, during your lunch break to work on it and things like that. And then this position also does interact with every single board member in terms of promoting all of our staff assembly events that we have going on, and just keeping in communication with the board to be able to share things that we have happening either for staff assembly or elsewhere on campus.
Hey Jess, it's Lucy. I'm going to jump in real quick and just speak on behalf of like all of the board positions. While most of the work that needs to be done per position can mostly be done during work hours, we want to be clear that there will be times where out of work hour commitment may be needed. For example, with a StratCom, if there's last minute changes, you know, there could be a moment in which we would need some time in your evening, or maybe even on a weekend, to make sure that newsletter gets updated and stuff. So that's something to consider when running for a board position, is if you're absolutely against or don't have the availability to be flexible on out of work hours to fulfill or commit to your role, that may be something to consider being a committee member instead. So just putting that out there. There are lots of ways to get involved with staff assembly. And while we want you to be open to, you know, join us as a board member, there is a real commitment, and sometimes it does go out of your regular work hours, and that may be something that, you know, would be helpful for you to know beforehand.
Thank you, Jessica and Lucy. Moving on, Vice President Wellness, Mark.
Thank you, Ray. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Buseymeyer, and I am this year's VP of Wellness. And I got involved last year, had a great time, and was really happy to be a part of this team and put on different wellness related events. And so with wellness, you know, there are many dimensions of wellness, and there's flexibility to be creative in how you like to, you know, plan various events, engagements, so on and so forth with the community around wellness. But then there's also some other things that are more predefined based off of how the role has been evolving over time. And so program engagement, Fitness for Fun was an opportunity to partner with UCLA Recreation and do different kind of, not really happy hour, but a little group workout with your peers to kind of make exercising a lifestyle that's fun. And so that's something that we've done for a number of years now. And you may have seen some of the ones we did this year, like a gyrokinesis event and so forth. A community garden plot. So the Seminole Healthy Campus Initiative Center on campus has a 31 raised bed community garden with a small fruit tree orchard up in the Sunset Canyon Recreation Center. And so that's actually a project that I see in my day job, which is a lot of fun. And so I've had a real joy just getting able to bring this closer to staff assembly. And so we have a couple plots up there for staff. And so if this is something that you want to get experience in, it's a beautiful way to get outside and learn how to grow your own food and all the intricacies of life and how it's all connected. And so we have a lot of fun with that. Although we haven't been able to get in person, I'm happy to share that that's going to be opening up possibly this summer. And so returning back into the garden and those events, please do stay tuned, because this is a really great opportunity for you to just kind of oversee some of the responsibilities in terms of applying, engaging plot holders and whatnot. I had a little bit of time to help with some of the wellness related Learn at Lunches. So many thanks to Joy for giving me some experience in planning some of those different events. We had a Mindful Awareness Research Center do an event. We had UCLA Recreation. And so aside from that, we have different kind of one-off social and community engagement activities that we've done. And this year we did virtual socials and had a lot of fun bridging some of the environmental sustainability themes of wellness with partnerships with UCLA Sustainability. And so we had a nice DIY holiday craft making event, a spring cleaning and self-care event where we made different products that were healthy for us and healthy for your environment. So a lot of fun there. And speaking to the community engagement, there are different wellness related committees, and this is not an all extensive list, and you are not necessarily responsible for participating in all of these. This is a lot of different ones, but you can, because there are different pieces of wellness that connect to all of these. And so the Seminole Healthy Campus has different pods or working groups, span from our Eat Well pod, which focuses on food nutrition, to our Mind Well pod, which focuses on mental health. And so these are great opportunities to build partnerships with high level stakeholders on campus, and then also just get to know different peers and see what's going on. And a lot of opportunities to start projects and programs and work collaboratively. There's also different working groups like the CPO Basic Needs. And so if an emphasis of your term is to focus on basic needs, that was a little bit of a opportunity to get involved. This year there was a lot of opportunity for basic needs. And so different Spark campaigns were going around to support staff, for example. And so there's an opportunity to get in that. Wellness on campus, it's typically geared towards students, I believe, but nonetheless, an opportunity for wellness related stakeholders to come on campus. And so you can see some of the other ones with disability and sustainability. Another kind of pseudo mentor that I was able to chat with is the kind of wellness programs rep with UCLA Health, Patrice. So that's a really great way to learn about kind of what's going on over there on that side of our campus, and in terms of how they share resources with a newsletter. And so, maybe you can get creative and find opportunities for discounts on wellness apps or other things that can be inspired or worked upon with other wellness stewards on campus. Other things that have been worked on in the past is, you have opportunities to get involved with the virtual 5K. And then the last thing is different task force opportunities that you can get involved with. For example, diversity inclusion was a task force this year, and I felt compelled to be a participant of that because I think that was very relevant to wellness. I don't know if we'll speak more about the different engagement survey task forces later. I would imagine we are, so I won't go too into detail on that. But this is a really great opportunity. I think it has a lot of creative opportunity as well for you to kind of focus on a theme of wellness that inspires you and that you want to get involved with. And there's also a lot of things that have been done along the way, so you don't feel like, you know, you're totally out in the dark. And I'm very proud of the spreadsheets that I have that I will be sharing off with the next person. So if you're interested, I'll put my email in the chat, mbuseymeyer@ucla.edu. I would really love to talk to you about it and see how I can get you as excited as I was to participate. Thank you. Back to Ray.
Thanks, Mark. Our secretary historian.
Hey guys. Hi, this is Gina Beery. So thank you to everybody who's on the line today. I love this image. It's so true of what you go through. If you like, you know, crossing T's and dotting I's, so to speak, this is a good role for you. It's accuracy is really important. I've had this role. I work in events and transportation. I am the manager of training and organizational development. That's my day job. And then since the fall / almost winter, I have been in the secretary role. And so it takes, let's see, because the board meets every other week, that's kind of the cadence for putting together the agenda beforehand. And then also taking the minute notes. So basically, I'd say the most important thing to be cognizant of with this role is being present at each of the board meetings. So it's not necessarily a role that can really, you know, tolerate absenteeism, just because you're the one taking the notes. And then you can see the bullet points here on the screen for some of the nuts and bolts with it. But the other thing I'll say is that you also manage the calendar of the the staff assembly events. And so a lot of it, actually all of it, is handled within Google Drive. So that's pretty nice. And then you just communicate via Slack with the board at large. So that's pretty much it that I have for this role. Thanks so much for letting me share.
Treasurer. Has Dejoko joined us?
He's on, but
I see him on.
might not be able to unmute his he's connected by his phone, but I can just share really quickly until Joko let us know if you can jump in. The treasurer position, as Ray mentioned earlier, is a 2-year commitment. And so Joko has served as our treasurer for the last 2 years. Basically, you're responsible for the finances of staff assembly and checking in with regards to our endowments so that we can make sure we know how many scholarships we can offer in a healthy way to our staff on an annual basis. There's also a little bit of reimbursement, and then just keeping in touch with the president and president-elect to make sure that there are enough funds to put on projects and events that we would potentially need a little bit of, petty cash to do so. And then on top of it, so just to be clear, there are people who have served as a treasurer without any finance experience. There are people who have served as treasurer as the fund manager of their department. So this position is something that, really anyone who is interested in learning about treasury can do. There may be a learning curve if you don't have much experience, but this is a volunteer board and we're all in this together. So there's lots of learning opportunities, and most previous board members stick around long enough to make sure you are fully onboarded and comfortable with your new position. So this is a wonderful opportunity to get 2 years of staff assembly guaranteed. Many of us want to stay on staff assembly. I'm cycling off next year and don't by bylaws, I'm not allowed to stay on. So I'm a little sad about that, but that's all right. But if you are interested in getting involved in staff assembly and none of the other positions that have been shared so far interest you very much, this is a wonderful way to be a really big foundation for staff assembly, because of without the funds, we're not able to, do what we do for our staff and our colleagues.
Thank you, Lucy. member at large. Do we have either of our members at large on?
Maybe
I-
Jess can talk about it just because you appoint them. So, or even Ray because of next year.
Yeah, they're not on today. So either one, Ray, if you want to take a stab at it, and then I can add on anything else.
Well, from what I understand of the members at large currently, they are appointed by the president. They are not positions that anyone can nominate themselves for, although it would be great to approach the president to see if you have an interest. So if you do have an interest, let me know. The member at large is, from what I'm seeing, is the president's representative to committees, the broad university, and anything that essentially needs communication to be taken back and forth to and from. We'd have two. We have one for health and one for the rest of the university. But I'm thinking we might be able to get quite a bit of interest in these because they're not, I don't know what the time commitment would be based on the board and the bylaws. Essentially, you don't have to be, you're not a voting member of the board, so you don't have to be at every meeting. It's essentially just a communication process between the member at large and the president.
Yeah, and I can also add to, you know, the positions definitely vary year to year based on the president and their priorities for the year. So again, if you have an interest in member at large for next year, definitely talk to Ray and find out what his priorities are for these positions. And so, you know, something we did new this year that we had not have the member at large positions do previously is try to, you know, maintain more direct contact with the committees, the campus committees that we appoint staff to, and just checking in and making sure we have completed all of our appointments, and then also trying to follow up with our appointments to see how the committee is going, if there's any additional support needed from staff assembly. Last year, our member at larges focused on, you know, professional development opportunities and bringing that unique feature to the board, the board itself, and facilitating, you know, short professional development presentations at each of our meetings. So again, really, this role is pretty flexible because it is based on the priorities of what the president has for that term. But in general, they support the president, and they also really support the entire board because, you know, this role is really, because it's the most flexible, it's the best role to kind of get a feel for everything that the board does, because if we need additional support for a major event, you might be helping our VP of events. If we have a Spark campaign going on, you may be helping the VP of development and supporting that role. So it's a really great introduction to the board and kind of gets you an opportunity to learn what the board does as a whole. And they are really essential volunteer positions that are a little bit more of a commitment than a general volunteer. So as Lucy mentioned before, you know, you can choose to volunteer for a board member specifically and work on their committee, and you would be supporting that individual board member. But the member at large positions are more of a formal capacity volunteer role where you are a member of the board and you do participate a little bit more regularly and a little bit more formally than just a general board committee volunteer.
Thank you, Jessica. President-elect. So I think this, if you're planning to run for president-elect, know that this is probably the most time-consuming and committed relationship to the board that you will be applying for or nominating yourself for. This is a 3-year commitment. So you start as president-elect, you move on to the president role, and then as the immediate past president. It is also the most informed position, which is why it takes 3 years for you to actually get a lot of that information. Me as president-elect, I still don't know a lot about what's happening because there's a lot to take in. And as you've been hearing Jessica jump in for some of these positions, I know the positions, but I haven't seen them all in action yet. I haven't been with the board that long. And so it takes a long time to really understand what's going on with the board. And the time commitment is substantial because I would imagine it would be anywhere from 1 to 2 hours a week. And that is checking in with other board members, going to meetings, doing things like that. But also 3 days in every quarter, you represent UCLA at the UC Council of Staff Assemblies. And so you will be leaving the university unless it's hosted at UCLA, but these meetings are hosted at other UC campuses. So you'll be traveling for 3 days. So that means you'll need to take some time off from work and go and do this work for staff assembly. So you need to have a good relationship with your supervisor and have that communication with them to ensure that you have the ability to not be in your office or do the work that you need to do for your day job and commit to those 3 days every quarter to go to these CUCSA meetings. So it is a big time commitment, but it's quite informative also because you get to know and understand every position on the board, and it takes a while to do that. Okay, I'm gonna move on to president because I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything for president-elect. It's a lot.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, so like Ray mentioned, president-elect is the formal position that you are running for, and that sets you up for a 3-year term to be essentially in your training year. And then your second year, you are the president of the board, which is my role this year. And then your third year, you are the immediate past president, which is Lucy's current role that she'll talk about more in a little bit. And apologies if you hear my dogs barking. They love to go wild every time I'm speaking. But essentially, the president role, similarly to the president-elect, you do need the release time to be able to attend the CUCSA meetings, which are quarterly. So it is very important that if you have an interest in this role, to be open and in communication with your supervisor to let them know that you will need some pretty significant release time for the position. There is no cost to attending CUCSA because it is covered by staff assembly and by CUCSA. So typically when we're back in person, you would be physically traveling to different locations, different UC locations during the year. Currently, we're still doing virtual, so it's been a little bit easier to manage and not have to deal with the travel. But it's just something to keep in mind because it is 3 days out of the week, but then you also have to include travel time in that. So it's important to just, be very transparent that this is a need of these specific roles and to make sure that your supervisor is on board with granting the release time to be able to fulfill this really essential role for the campus and for the UC system, because that is where a lot of the advocacy work takes place on behalf of policy covered staff. So that, the involvement in CUCSA is very critical and very essential. But also I would say one of the most rewarding aspects of taking on the role of presidency. So in your president term, essentially you're managing the staff assembly board, serving as the CUCSA senior delegate, and you're also sitting on various campus committees and task forces on behalf of the staff assembly board. So this is the other piece that I would say takes the most significant amount of time, is just all of the different capacities that you're asked to represent staff for on behalf of the campus. So similarly, where student government representatives might be on a task force or a committee, staff assembly would be asked to sit on that committee on behalf of staff. So you can choose to delegate somebody to sit on a specific committee or task force for you if you're not able to fulfill that commitment. But it's just something to keep in mind because it does add a good amount of the time commitment that you have during your workday, because typically you're having these meetings during the day. So just something to be aware of. And then you know, you're also responsible for all of the communications on behalf of staff assembly. So managing the staff assembly email, sending out the newsletters biweekly to the listserv, and then just in general supporting each board position with their own individual roles. It's really critical to work a lot with development, like Lauren mentioned, to make sure that we're doing enough fundraising during the year to provide the staff scholarships. You work a lot with the treasurer to make sure that you know, we are having a good budget and we're having you know, enough fundraising dollars coming in, and that also we're, you know, taking care of all the recipients of our scholarships and getting those reimbursed. You're working directly with, you know, strategic communications, getting that newsletter out. You're working directly with events to make sure all of the events are successful. So you really touch every piece of the board. So I would say that it is helpful if you have some staff assembly experience coming into the role of president-elect, just because, like Ray mentioned, it's less of a learning curve if you're kind of familiar with the different board positions and the different major initiatives and events that staff assembly does. But it's not 100% necessary because you can learn all of that. And, you know, you just would need to be prepared to really dig in and get to know all of the board members, get to understand their different positions during your president-elect year, so that when you do come into the role of president, you're more prepared to, you know, lead the board and make sure that everybody feels supported so that we can accomplish all the amazing work we do. Because at the end of the day, like Lucy mentioned, we are all volunteers. And so, you know, it is a pretty significant commitment that takes a lot of your personal time. So, you know, just not to scare anyone away from wanting to be involved in the position, but just to be prepared that, you know, this does take a lot of evening hours. It does take a lot of weekend hours. You know, sometimes it's during your workday. So again, just being very very communicative with your supervisor is important so that they understand the commitment of this role. But I would say that it is a very, very rewarding experience, and I would recommend it to anybody who wants to get more involved on campus, wants to build community for staff, wants to advocate for policy covered staff, and really be part of policy changes on campus and at the UC system-wide level. So definitely, if you have an interest and you're not really sure, or you want to know more about the time commitment, feel free to reach out to Ray, myself, or Lucy, and we're happy to chat more about the role and, you know, answer any questions or any hesitations you might be having if you're not too sure about taking on the president role. But again, you know, you do have that full year as president-elect of learning and preparing yourself, so that you can feel comfortable when you come into the president role.
Thank you, Jessica. Lucy.
Hey everyone, I see we're at the top of the hour, so I'm just going to go pretty fast. All of the above that has been shared, I think I'm going to focus more on how rewarding the position is, even though it does take a lot of time and energy, and there may be a little bit of blood, sweat, or tears, but it's totally worth it if you are committed to really being a greater part of the community that employs you. Basically, I'm someone who loves to understand what the university as a whole is all about, and not just the department that I work for, or the people that I get to work with. And staff assembly has been one of the greatest blessings for me to be proud of, not just being a Bruin by education, but Bruin as, you know, my employer, and really just a big part of my life altogether. as Jess mentioned, this is particularly an organization because it is sponsored through the Campus Human Resources, focused on policy covered staff, but there are opportunities to get our represented staff through the represented staff, meaning you're part of the unions, to get involved in other ways as well. And it is just a wonderful way to build community. And then specifically as immediate past president, we've kind of deemed this person to work specifically on our engagement survey, which is something that comes out of the Council of UC Staff Assemblies. Those survey results get shared most falls and in fall every 2 years. And then we kind of build a network of staff who volunteer to work on specific topics that our campus specifically can do better about. With that, I'm going to just stop there because of time. But if anyone is interested in learning more about engagement survey or would like to talk more about what it is to serve as the president of Staff Assembly, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Lucy. So we've come to the end. I can stay on and answer any questions from the audience, but if any of the other board members needs to leave, feel free. Any questions?
Ray, do you want to quickly just talk about how the process to run for a position, if anyone's interested?
Right. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting together a My UCLA form to open up nominations. Nominations is essentially you either nominate yourself or somebody else nominates you, but be careful in nominating somebody else. You want to make sure you check in with them first. Make sure that's something that they want to do, that they have the time for. And because for the elected board positions, you cannot be exclusively represented, so you can't be part of a union. So you want to have that conversation with whoever you think might be a good fit for the board before you nominate them. And if you're looking to nominate yourself, those are essentially the criteria. You have to be policy covered. You want to make sure you have the time and talk to your supervisor prior to, so that they know that you're going to have some time commitments outside of your office to do so. After the nominations go through, then we send out a notification to all those who have nominated themselves or someone else, letting them know you've been nominated for this position. If you accept it, please give us some information so we can put on the ballot. And then we put together the ballot a couple of weeks after that, and elections happen. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you for coming and joining us. And I hope to see and hear from a lot of you in the near future. Thank you.